Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Zühlke Health Talk. My name is Stefan Weiß. I'm a principal consultant at Zühlke, specifically for our pharma and MedTech clients. I'm super happy to guide you through this exciting virtual event today. We will have two impulse presentations by our guests, followed by a Q&A session where you can participate with your own questions. So please log in to Slido to participate in our polls and ask questions. I can hear and see that many people are joining, which is very good. For those who don't know Zühlke yet, we are a consulting and development company for digital innovation with almost 2,000 employees. We support our clients on their digital transformation journey with a special focus on the healthcare sector. For example, we developed the COVID-19 tracing app in the UK. Digital health is one of the most exciting growing fields in the market, affecting all stakeholders with numerous opportunities for patient, HCPs, and solution providers. Despite those opportunities, pharma and medtech organizations still face significant challenges in this field. Based on our client work, one of the most important ones is finding the right business model to not only provide, but also capture value of digital health solutions. To help you succeed in this, we want to share first-hand insights from our invited industry experts. So let's get started with an opening question to the audience, to you, using Slido. So what types of digital health business model offers the greatest potential for pharma and medtech? You can choose different options. So please log in now to Slido and vote for your preferences. We will have a look at the results in a minute. I'm very happy to introduce our two guests of today, Frank Desire and Mithun Ratnakumar. Frank is the former head of Digital Health Solutions at Roche Diagnostics. He will share his approach to define digital health business models and what to learn from specific diagnostics examples. Mithun is the co-head of the Digital Hub at Gerresheimer. He will share learnings of their recently launched solution for US pharmacists to improve drug adherence. He will also give insights on the underlying business model of this solution. Thanks a lot, Frank and Mithun, to join us today.
Thank you for the introduction, Stefan.
You're welcome. When talking about digital health, the definition is often still vague, despite a great categorization available from the Digital Medicine Society. It includes solutions without specific medical regulations, like lifestyle and wellness apps, some telehealth solutions, as well as patient education apps, for example. In addition, digital health comprises also DTX, so digital therapeutics, and digital medicine solutions, which are backed by clinical evidence and real-world outcomes. Examples for this are digital diagnostics, remote patient monitoring systems, clinical decision support systems, or DGAS. For today, we want to look at business models across the full spectrum of digital health and not only focus on a subcategory. When organizations aim to succeed the digital transformation of today, they have to master two perspectives in parallel. First of all, the in-house transformation, with a new operating model, including new agile processes, roles, tools, a data platform, and which are all supporting the development, the release, and the management of digital solutions. This is often accompanied by strong change management activities. In addition, you have to own the market-facing side, so to release new products and succeed in value capturing. Both perspectives are strongly interconnected, of course, and require for success. From our experience at Zühlke, the in-house one is mandatory to succeed also on the market. Today, we want to focus on the market-facing perspectives with the underlying business models. We have recently released a white paper, How Digital Health Solutions Can Generate Revenue. We gave a holistic overview of direct and indirect models, including reimbursement, direct-to-consumer, and B2B models. In addition, we shared insights on the most relevant indirect levers. For example, the switching reasons, why patients switch the therapy, and real-time performance of devices for MedTech solutions. If you haven't read it yet, you can download it on our Zühlke website. Today, we want to build up on this and share additional examples from our guests. So what do you as an audience think about which categories offer the greatest potential? Let's look at the Slido results. Okay, so many of you have voted in our poll, and what we can see is very interesting, I think. Many of you see the benefits of the direct business model, so we can directly measure the revenue generation, and 60% of you voted for the B2B model, which is very interesting. Then also 48% voted for the reimbursement pathway. I think that's not surprising coming from the industry of MedTech and Pharma, because that's traditional pathways. And then a little lower, you can see also the direct to consumer as well as the indirect levers. That's great results. Thanks for participating and sharing. We will discuss that further in our Q&A session. With this, I want to first of all thank Frank for joining and giving us his perspective on digital health business model. Again, please use Slido throughout the whole session to ask your questions, and we will come at the end of our slot to this, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. So, Frank, it's your stage.
Yes, Stefan, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and really a big pleasure to be here today to discuss digital healthcare, a very important topic to me as well. I've been working 25 years in healthcare innovation, many years in diagnostics, including also digital health, developing and bringing digital health solutions to market, many years at Roche. Diagnostics, and I'm really happy to talk about the topic today. We can jump into the next slide, I think. Yeah, I think to start with, what is very important to point out is that digital health solutions have really pushed both pharma and medtech into a new era, with the potential of digital health solutions to reshape healthcare altogether. I think that's very important. It's now one of the fastest growing areas in the healthcare industry. So many projects, so many initiatives, business building up, companies thriving in all areas. And it really holds a big promise because it has the potential to reshape patient care today. That's very important. Bold moves by pharma and medtech companies are a bit limited, or even have been scaled back very recently, also due to some uncertainties, not the least because of the increasing regulatory requirements, but also the uncertainty about business value and business models. And I'm really happy that we are able to discuss this today because it's an essential piece of the success of digital health solutions in the future. In many companies, I have to say, unfortunately so, digital health solutions are still perceived as nice to have add-ons, right? As gimmicks or not essential solutions. And that's not ideal. And that affects, obviously, the success of those projects in companies. What is really different and why is it so difficult for established companies in the pharma industry, also in the medtech industry, is that for digital health solutions, the complexity around business models is so much bigger than the traditional products, which fall into basically mostly one category of business model, which is reimbursement. That's the classic and prevailing business model in these industries. However, digital health solutions, and we will talk about it, we have so many more options and opportunities, and it makes it difficult for traditional players to embrace these different opportunities, right? With that, I go to the next slide, and I would like to talk a bit about, uh, more the bigger picture when it comes to coming up with digital revenue models in companies. And I think it starts with a good strategy, right? It is important to determine and have clarity who really benefits from the solution in the end and how this solution links to the portfolio of classic products that exist in these companies, and how to create a more holistic offer to customers and patients alike, right? And then obviously, part of this strategy is then defining a monetization strategy, which could be indirect or direct. But it's clear that also the choices of the product and how it is delivered has operational implications in companies, which are mostly also new to those companies because they don't follow the traditional path. And therefore, operational processes and systems to implement those revenue models have to be also thought of and implemented at the same time as developing and finally launching those products. Very important. And finally, then the commercialization obviously needs to be determined where money will really flow from and how to operate in that environment. In my opinion, the revenue concept or commercialization idea and monetization idea is for many, at least for many products, not a one-off. It entails, you see that on the right side a bit, an ideation in the concept phase, obviously, where you think, how can it work? You need to identify the needs of your customers, the real value drivers, and what's the initial proposition. And then you come to a revenue model 1.0, basically a first idea that you can test. But very likely, it is important to refine and evolve that first revenue model over time. In many cases, that's possible to adapt to specific healthcare environment. So on the next slide, basically what comes then when it relates to the monetization strategy is that you have four main options in that regard. Obviously, you can go for no monetization, which sounds strange, but it's important because digital products can be seen as an enabler, but it can be difficult to attribute a specific value to them. But that's important in my mind because digital solutions can be a very important differentiator for more traditional solutions, both in pharma and also in the MedTech area. And even though the value may not be possible to measure, that doesn't mean that there is no value existing, right? That's very important here. The next one, obviously, is a monetization via the core. That means digital products become part of another solution, therefore become part of the core product P&L, let's say, as a differentiator, and then that's part of, let's say, an improved product offering that the company can do. Then you have direct monetization opportunities where digital products are really directly commercialized with a clear price and where customers pay for the solution. And there's different possibilities around that, obviously. An important fourth possibility that should not be avoided is that data access and data overall can also be monetized separately from the product value. More and more data-related aspects, particularly around patient data, obviously, but also usability data of more traditional products, for example, become a very important value driver and therefore can be monetized either internally and sometimes even for third parties. So this monetization aspect should not be forgotten, and I would expect that over time, with accumulating of data, important data, this becomes more and more relevant in the future. With the next slide, then, I would like to talk a bit more on the monetization strategy here. Clearly, the first step is, and it's almost trivial, but never to be omitted here, is who pays, identifying the customer in detail and who's going to pay. The second step is how the customer can pay. The payment structure is important, as many opportunities and possibilities for usage, for click per use, and many other opportunities to have customers pay for the solution. And finally, also relevant here is the assessment of how modular the solution actually can be, and that has an impact on how the payment structure can be set up. In the next slide, I would like to bring a few examples in the next two slides, actually, a few examples. And in this slide, I would like to talk about in-hospital care. Digital health solutions are massively entering in-hospital care. And for example, one way to implement viable digital health solutions is improving the path, the practice in hospitals, and therefore linking the offering to DRG reimbursement codes, for example. So the business model is related to the fact that digital health solutions support physicians, for example, and other healthcare practitioners in their everyday practice with patients, and therefore improve the efficiency of their work and procedures, tagging into existing methods that are reimbursed via DRG codes. Very important. What is important as a success factor here is that clearly these digital health solutions should optimize the work of healthcare practitioners with regards to workflow and procedures, improve outcomes, accuracy of their work, and so on, and therefore really improve patient outcomes in the end and the productivity in the hospital. Some examples where this has been used or is being used now, for example, from Roche and also Bayer. It's in Roche, for example, the Navify algorithm suite, the Bayer's AI platform in radiology. Both solutions bring clinical algorithms to clinician practice, where physicians are able to improve their decision making when it comes to diagnosing patients. And therefore, these procedures, as they are already covered by specific DRG codes, can be leveraged here for the monetization of these solutions as they improve productivity, quality of care, and so forth. Very important. In my last slide, I would like to then talk about another area of application of digital health solution, which is actually very quickly evolving to offer valuable care to many, many stakeholders. And it is about heart failure disease management, for example, remote disease management as well. And what you may know is that there's a lot of platforms emerging that link patients at home with the hospitals, with physicians to improve care overall. And there's different business models that can be leveraged in that regard, because there's also different stakeholders involved and values created to different stakeholders. For example, you can have subscription-based models, really where there's service offered to patients that are, interested to take care of their health and pay for it. An important aspect, however, is that the solutions are used to monitor patients remotely, and therefore adding to providers' efficiency and productivity, and also reduce the cost of care. For example, if providers are able to monitor patients, to also avoid resubmissions into hospitals, there's a big cost saving involved into it. Or if they are able to, identify early complications with heart failure patients whilst they are at home, it has been demonstrated to generate huge cost savings. But also, not the least, employer-sponsored programs are being utilized in that regard. That's also used in the US a lot. It's used for integrated care coordination, right, through multiple stakeholders. The pharmaceutical industry might also be interested to team up in that regard to enable, obviously, the proper use of their medications and improve overall outcomes to patients. And finally, there's an aspect of population health that can be monetized because payers may be interested to improve overall practice when looking at their whole population, insured population, and improving care pathways for the overall population of insured people. So as you see here, many, many different opportunities, and it's for each solution, each company to select the right one, which is certainly difficult, but also exciting, and makes digital health solutions really an important enabler for the future to revolutionize patient care. With that, I'm going to end my part here and hand over to the next speaker, who is Mithun. Please go ahead, Mithun.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for the warm welcome. Really thrilled to be here and be part of this discussion.
And if I may say, also don't forget to still vote on the Slido slides to the audience. Sorry, Mithun, not you.
All good. Thank you, Frank. So yeah, like I was saying, really thrilled to be here and part of this discussion with you, Frank, Stefan, and also to answer the question from the audience. A brief introduction of myself. I work at Gerresheimer, co-heading the Digital Hub team, responsible for digitalization and new business model at Gerresheimer. And one of the solutions is what I'm going to speak to today with the solution we released in the US. But before we go into the depth of the actual product, I just want to give a bit of a background as to what is it we are trying to address. I would say, I think at this point in time, it is not uncommon for all the audience members here to hear about the adherence challenges and why it is important. But what I want to focus on is like why many solutions out there to tackle adherence does not necessarily scale or succeed or face significant challenges. And what you can see here on the screen is there is value for adherence solutions such as remote patient monitoring product. To tackle them, I mean, hospitals do see the value, but if you look on the right, then despite the interest or adoption from the hospital, the patient usage is still limited. So it does not go to the point where all patients make use of it. And there are some significant barriers to adoption. And some of the challenges include the user acceptance and willingness to use this platform, or to do with how actively and consistently users engage with the solution, or maybe even how well the users understand and use them correctly and effectively. Now, there are various strategies that we can employ to tackle these challenges. And one of the strategies we looked into is the role of human touch, and in particularly the role of pharmacists in trying to address some of these barriers. If you move to the next slide, what you see here is, like, especially in the US, majority of the Americans live close by a pharmacy, and they visit the pharmacist 10 times more than they actually visit the primary care physician. If you look at this big picture, the role of pharmacists are quite important, and they play like an integral part of this stakeholder ecosystem that the patients interact with. Of course, all pharmacies are not the same. Some pharmacies only focus on prescription filling it as fast as they can. with very little patient interaction. But what we also see here is that there are some pharmacies that focus on patients. They have a very strong relation with their patient and members of their patient local care team. And they also tend to provide enhanced services that can improve the effective outcome of this complex patient treatment. And that's what we are focusing on. We are focusing on the pharmacies that are looking into having high touch point with their patient. And what we do at Gerresheimer, if you move to the next slide, is work with such pharmacies, empower them with solutions that can enable this touch point. So in the US, there are some pharmacies who are interested in offering adherence program. And we do have that market access. We have this channel to the pharmacies, and we offer solutions or a platform so that other pharmacists can intervene and have a dialogue with the patient with regard to the health, and we want to enable them or we want to empower them. And how this works is that patients are onboarded during their routine visits into the pharmacies, and they are informed of this adherence program. And once they are identified, when they are onboarded into it, using the help of the primary care physician, they are prescribed to the such a program, and then the pharmacist does the routine monitoring of the adherence of the patient. And what we offer to them is a platform with a smart pill bottle, so that there is a means to trigger a dialogue, by a solution that can say whether the patient has taken the pill or not. Now, if you move to the next slide. And why are pharmacies doing that? Of course, there is an interest from the pharmacist's perspective to improve the outcome, but there is also the second challenge, the most important part, which is the reimbursement. Now, if you look back from 2018, this is sort of like a service that has been made accessible to the physicians as a fee for service. So there has been various RTM codes that has been released by CMS, which allows for the physicians to offer such service and bill for that service. But what was pivotal was somewhere in 2022, there has been an update in the guidance that states that such a service does not have to be performed under the direct supervision of a physician, but can be performed under indirect supervision of a physician and can be done by qualified healthcare professional. And by qualified healthcare professional, it means the pharmacist, physiotherapist, and other members who are involved in the healthcare system. So this was a pivotal moment for the pharmacies so that they could also undertake such a service that traditionally was only limited to the doctors and is able to get reimbursed for the activity. And this now they can do that for multiple therapeutic areas. So it started with respiratory as one of the area that can be done. And currently there are 2 more therapeutic areas that such a service can be performed in the field of musculoskeletal as well as behavioral health. Moving on to the next slide. Yeah, like I was saying previously, a typical patient journey starts with their visit to the pharmacies. And once they're eligible for the program, either through the primary care visit or through a telehealth session, those patients are prescribed such a program. And once they're prescribed such a program, they are provided with this smart pill bottle and the prescription refilled into the pill bottle. And then all the patients have to do is take the medication on a frequent basis. There are no additional apps or additional tools to make use of from the patient perspective. It is just a matter of opening and closing the bottles. And this data is made accessible to the care team so that can be used as part of the routine call to check how the patients are doing, whether they're taking the medication. If not, they are taking the medication, have a dialogue to understand why they're not taking the medication. And then in the end, provide some recommendation to the patients. So eventually, this information or these services as part of the routine call are tracked and logged and can be used for billing purposes to get it reimbursed by the pharmacies. Next slide. In terms of monetization, there is a well-structured public framework in the US for that. So there's a clearly defined code, the clearly defined pricing, and the coverage mechanics for such a service. And so what we leverage here is that our relation with pharmacies and their relation with the provider is used to offer this end-to-end service, but it's also reimbursed under this public guideline. What is important for us to succeed in this field is, of course, the adoption by the pharmacies and their reach to the regional chains. And just to mention, it's also something new for pharmacies currently. And that was also a bit of a learning that we also see that in terms of national scale, there's also a lot of learning for the pharmacies to have in this process. The other important success factor for us here is the adoption or the relationship between the pharmacies with the in-house provider or the third-party provider, because that is key for the patient onboarding into such a program, or let's say eligibility identification to such a program, and eventually for eventual monetization. So this product is in the US market as we speak. We launched quite recently, and we do have some uptake with some pharmacies and patients on the system. Again, we're on the early phase and we're looking to scale, and maybe in coming weeks or coming months, I can give an update on where we stand as well.
Great. Thanks a lot, and we keep our fingers crossed for a big success from this side.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mithun and Frank, for giving your insights, sharing it on slides with the audience. We have some questions prepared from our side for a vivid discussion. Again, we're here for you, the audience. So please log in to Slido if you haven't yet. We received the first questions, which is great, but we really want to have you engaged in the session as well and involve you here. So with this, I stop the presentation so you can see us a bit better. And we want to dive into some questions, maybe starting specifically with the solutions you've presented. So Mithun, thanks again for sharing your approach to address this adherence challenge by pharmacists in the US. You've nicely pointed out the solution. When we think about or talk about specifically the underlying commercial model, so the business model with the reimbursement codes and so on, how did you, as Gerresheimer, identify or scout the different options, identify the specific solution, and what were your key learnings and derived best practices by doing so? Can you share that with us, please?
Yeah, sure. Great question. If I take a step back and look into what are the possible digital health products that you can put out there, there is like a range of solutions that you can think about, all the way from telemedicines or wellness apps, which have got some established players with a significant market presence, or all the way to this integrated drug delivery products and digital therapeutics, which is still a market to be, I would call it, proven. So you can see a bit of a difference here that some of the established market has got this single-digit growth opportunity, whereas some of this to be established market has huge potential, and we believe in that, and it's poised for this double-digit growth. Now, when we look at Gerresheimer, why is Gerresheimer doing it? Gerresheimer is doing this as part of a growth strategy, and we believe that digitalization is a key part of this growth strategy. But we also had to be a bit mindful of what is our right to play and right to win in each of these potential options, because each of these potential options or solution has got an underlying business model, and we had to be a bit mindful of where does it make sense for Gerresheimer to really actually play in. So how we looked into this, let's say one of these approaches, this is one example, this is how we look in other areas too, is where do we currently play currently? I mean, we have got two customer base. One is pharma, the other is pharmacies. And pharmacies because of our sister company center in the US. Currently in that channel, we offer the vials, the actual orange pill bottle you see in the movies, and it's a commodity business. And our first step was to try and understand how can we create value in this particular channel, and how can we innovate in such a way that we can have new business models. So we did not try to go out and early on to try something completely new to the assignment, but we try to innovate in strategically in a field that we already have an established play. So whilst doing this exercise, we went all the way from, let's say, the early market understanding, market research, to see what are the potential unmet needs around this channel, around the pharmacist. And we quickly realized that there is an interest in that channel to have new monetization mechanism. That led all the way to having this dialogue and discussion with our customers to get an early feeling of, okay, how do they see it? How do they see this potential, let's say, the underserved need that they're looking to capitalize on? And based on this dialogue, we tried to stay close to what we're good at, and found a solution to innovate in that particular field. In terms of learnings, obviously, everything we do on a daily basis is a learning for us, because we are trying to push the boundaries of the company. We try to mitigate that early on by bringing experts, but I would say it is still an uphill battle, and but we do have the right team and the right support from externals as well to make us succeed in this spot.
Great, thanks. So it's a journey, and you start basically with what you have in terms of strategic positioning. Following up on that, Frank, you've shared also examples basically from your past and exciting areas. Why do you, or did you think you were the company with the ideal fit to launch a specific digital health solution? Can you share
Yeah, I think
some ideas about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an important question. I think, as with any company, I think what you have to think about is where you can create most synergies with your core product portfolio and your existing customers. It is much easier to launch new solutions, digital health solutions, into your customers, existing customers, rather than going out for a new customers with potentially a new solution that you're building, right? That's very important. So the strategic fit of digital health solutions to your area of activity, to the business segment you are in, is very important. And the amount of synergies you're able to create will be a decisive factor for being successful in the long term.
So the new is obviously a challenge. So you rather go for the better or easier opportunities first.
Yeah, I mean, what has to be realized, and I think many companies learned that digital health solutions are not so easy to do. I think for many years there was the fallacy that many people believed, okay, let's do a bit of software here and there and it will revolutionize our business. That has not panned out, because it became clear that many solutions have to be software as a medical device. It needs to be regulated. It's hard to achieve. Its business models are new and difficult to implement. So many companies, I guess, have also learned the hard way that it's not as easy to do. So this means greenfield activities also were much more penalized after a while than activities that were closer to the core business of those businesses, where they could reach synergies, access customers much more easy. So I think that's an important reflection to have for in the field of digital health.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Mithun, one more question to your specific solution. You've mentioned the different codes and so on. Which pricing methods did you apply when you were developing the solution?
Yeah, I would answer that in 2 parts. The first part is like, what is the framework to which this is being monetized? If you, in my slide, I mentioned this is like a very public framework under the guidelines of CMS. So there is a very clear coding, there is a very clear pricing, and there is a very clear coverage definition that says, okay, this is the code someone should use to bill for the service, and this is how much you can get paid for it, and you'll be paid for it under these conditions. So these are sort of predetermined for anyone who try to play in that field. So we stayed within this public framework to have that understanding of what is the eventual, let's say, revenue potential for this particular product or solution set. The other part to it is how this is, let's say, shared across the players offering the service. So there are the providers involved in there. There's also the pharmacies involved in there, and we're also part of this discussion in this triangle. And in terms of how this is further trickled down into the people involved in this exercise, is also determined based on some benchmarks as well. Why I say benchmark is because the moment you involve provider, there are some legal requirements in the US, what they call the fair market value under the stock law and anti-kickback statutes that we have to adhere to. So that's something that has to be determined based on the industry benchmark and how much people can really, or doctors can really monetize in a fair way in the market. And this is something that we have to look into with some experts and determine what that revenue split could potentially look like.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks a lot. We will go on with a broader context and maybe a question to Frank. Many of also our clients are in the process of developing or have already launched digital health solutions. But of course, the question is always, how do I measure impact? That's one of the core questions in terms of business impact. So could you share some thoughts how you defined in the past commercial success of a digital health solution, and then also which KPIs you applied for measuring basically this success? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's also a vast topic, but clearly commercial success in the first place ideally should be measured by the revenues generated of the solution in case of direct revenue models, subscription fees, or one-time purchases of the solution. But also in the pharma as well as MedTech industry, we discussed that is very important is the impact on core product sales and the value that these solutions create as differentiators in conjunction with the portfolio of traditional products, for example, right? And here you measure increase of volume, for example, or improved market access, even patient or customer retention, attractiveness of the entire solution, and things like that. But when you think about healthcare and the catering to patients, you could measure patient acquisition and retention, for example, adoption rates by the healthcare provider, number of prescribers, frequency of recommendations or utilization, right? The number of payer contracts secured, number and value, for example, of those agreements, and these are, so there's different possible measuring methods for to measure the success of these digital health solutions.
Great, thanks a lot. So because I think that's really one of the most urgent questions usually from the audience to define and measure that. Maybe a last question for now before we also look to the audience questions to Mithun. You've launched now this solution for in the US market, and have also obviously experience with other solutions in Europe. So from your experience, what are the best target markets for digital health as broadly as it is? The question, I know, but which how do you specify, like the benefits and the cons of the different markets, and maybe what were also your key learnings and experience differences between the US and Europe?
Yeah, that's a tough question, I have to say, because with the best market, like I said in the beginning, right? It's still an industry to prove its success at scale. What I would say here is, I think what's important is when you're trying to innovate with such solutions, it has to be in a market that can, of course, provide, let's say, critical mass enough so that we can penetrate and scale it at a significant level. But besides that, what's probably a few key things here is that there has to be some general framework. That general framework that is more, let's say, nationwide, or probably a subsection of the region-wide, that we can reuse for reimbursement purposes. Otherwise, if we have to go into a very bespoke one-to-one negotiations across maybe different hospital systems, it is a bit challenging for new and upcoming players to try and do that. So I think what's probably key in terms of market is that what are the market that offers such a general framework. We do see that in the US. So we do see that in the US, they've got some public frameworks. They're also moving towards certain guidelines hinting value-based care. Like, if you look into the news last year in December 2023, the Affordable Care Act authorizes CMS to test out value-based care. So we do see that there is a market that is looking to innovate and change. And they do have some public framework, and quite a lot of this private health plan framework they use for reimbursement is not published. So it's very difficult to tell, but it is still an option there because they're not like many health plans either. So there's like a handful of health plans. Once you're in there, then there's a potential for scale. We do see something similar in Germany with the DiGA market, even though I do know from various people that it's also not easy. It's also a bit challenging to do that. Despite that, there is still a big market in Europe, which is Germany, and there is a framework. And once you're in that framework, once you're through with all the regulatory hurdles, it's a bit more structured and a bit more stable once you're through there. And we see something similar also with France with the whole PCAN guideline, where it's also approved nationwide. So I would say, I think the important here is from my perspective, of course, you have to pick what fits the company. And this is not to discard like other regions in Asia or like, for instance, in Israel or other territory or Nordic region, where there's quite a lot of adoption of digital health. But it's also a bit reflective of, okay, us as a company, where does it make sense for to try and go? And then that's also something has to be in companies' thought process, and trying to fit into some of this framework that it's a bit lower barrier to capture this.
Yes, so it's definitely the existing corporate strategy and your footprint, as well as co-developing the market and the frameworks together in a rising market. So that's very interesting. All right, thanks a lot. We will switch to the questions from the audience, which is great that you participate. Actually, we will go by votes. So the first one is also to you, Mithun. Coming to this aspect of build versus buy or partner. So what's your advice for, when to build or buy a digital health solution, or when you partner with somebody? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, us as a company, which is also a bit public, we do have this two-pronged strategy. We do both build and buy. In terms of consideration, what's probably key is to look a bit into the speed to market aspect of things. How quickly you want to be in the market. I mean, that's probably a question for us to answer, and that's what we try to answer, like how quickly you want to be. And then the other element to look into is the topic about, do we want to, well, let's say, speaking for ourselves, we try to, let's say, build where it makes sense, and we try to partner where we want to create value. So we put it in one of those two buckets, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's always one size fits all. But this is probably the question we try to ask ourselves: like, speed. What do we want to do? Do we want to create value, or does it make sense to make it ourselves? And based on these approaches, we land in one of those two areas. So for instance, in the case of GXCAP that we have launched in the US, once we identified the opportunity, we went into investment into a startup in the US based out of Boston, and that's what we did. And that's what we did to launch this particular product, and that got us through the big part of the development activity. And now we have this experience by being in the market and learning from patient adoption as we speak.
Yeah, thanks. That's what we also hear. Like, time to market is one of the key drivers, and also the skill set, whether you want to build that up in-house or whether you want to be faster and have that externally. Thanks a lot, Mithun. Frank, a question to you, I think, from the audience. You've managed, you've shown on, I think it was the fourth bar, monetizing data to be as one of the options. The question is, monetizing data seems to be a big challenge for pharma. What are the biggest barriers and how to catch up internationally? How to overcome those barriers? Any thoughts on this?
Yes, absolutely. In the pharma area, what is becoming a really critical asset is real-world data, right? Real-world data can be used alongside the R&D processes to, improve productivity, to fasten, accelerate processes, test hypotheses, and use real-world data to steer the strategy and development. I think it's becoming very, very important, and therefore monetization of real-world data becomes an increasing trend. However, clearly, what is impeding the value creation is the quality of the data, first of all, right? By and large, the quality of patient data in, for example, hospital systems and so on, is clearly not where it should be or where people thought it is. And the initial value has been overestimated. The cost to clean the data, to consolidate, to make it usable is very, very large, actually. But I'm confident that going forward now is that we have structured databases, solutions that are interoperable, standardized, and so on. Going forward, this will become much more easy, and there's cleaning solutions, productivity solutions using AI and what have you, which facilitate that overall thing. But clearly, yes, this will be important in the future. And no, this has not achieved the initial value that people thought it would have.
Yes, that's definitely matching the expectations and managing the expectations is very important in this regards. Thanks a lot. Another question to Mithun, to your specific questions. Also, again, coming back to the matrices. So what do you measure and how do you define success? That's, again, the question. What are the customer and business value matrices you're tracking to determine if this approach is a success? Anything to share on this question?
Yeah, sure. I can share some of the key metrics that we have put in place as we also went into this pilot phase to scale. One of the things that we look a bit into is, what is by default the patient adoption rate. So how many patients do we
Mithun, I think we cannot hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now you're back.
Okay, right. Yeah, I was saying one of the key metrics that we look into is the patient adoption. So how many patients are the combination of provider and pharmacies being able to successfully onboard onto the solution, and for how long can we retain them? Because it's one thing trying to get them onto the solution. The other thing also trying to keep them on the retention rate. So that's one of the metrics we try to capture. The other metric we also look into is the pharmacy operational efficiency. This is based on a bit of the subjective feedback that we get it back from the pharmacies. How do they see it? How do they value our solution? Does it help add into the workload, or does it make it easier, or can we streamline it further? So that's another piece of question we also, or another metric we also try to measure in this operational efficiency perspective. And the third metric we also try to capture is the reimbursement time frame, because the reimbursement it's not fixed time frame, and there are quite a bit of challenges even with people even with establishments who have done that for years to make sure they have the billing code provided in the right structure, right manner, with the right information, so that it is fully reimbursed. So it's an important metric for us to capture, because the reimbursement could range anywhere from X number of days to X number of weeks. So we're talking between 35 days to 3 months even. So that's an
Yeah.
important metric for us to determine, because that's also has an impact to our partner or customers here.
Yeah, and the direct business impact, right?
That's a direct business impact, exactly. And then more on the indirect basis, what we also see here is the halo effect that we can potentially create. What we're doing in the pharmacies has a potential halo effect across our other streams, like to our pharma customers potentially. And that's an indirect metric, like how much of the solution that we can repurpose somewhere else.
Okay, thanks. So a lot of question. One more, maybe with a short answer, Frank, to you. What were your biggest pitfalls and learnings while defining and finding the ideal business models? Big question, but maybe one or two examples.
The biggest pitfall is jumping to conclusions too quickly, or into solution mode too quickly, without having really considered who's the real customer, what's the real value, and what's the best payment modality actually, and checking also the feasibility of those options is really important, and jumping to conclusions too quickly can lead to disaster.
Thanks. That's a great final word, I would say. So
That's a word of wisdom. I like that.
a word of wisdom. Great. Thanks a lot for the questions. I'm sorry that we cannot answer all of them. We're running out of time, but I think it was great to have also you participate as an audience and raise your questions. And thanks a lot to your answers, Frank and Mitun as well. So
Pleasure.
we've learned that digital health offers a lot of opportunities, but from the business model side, there are many more options than with traditional ones. So finding those models and not jumping, like you said, too quickly onto one solution, but like exploring and shaping it together is absolutely crucial. It requires a strong in-house setup with a robust strategy, and also so where you know where to play and how to succeed. And therefore, it's very important to shape the field actively and do that together as a community and with all different partners. So we hope you learned quite some things today in this session. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us either by LinkedIn or in other by other channels. And we are very happy that you joined today. And if you we would also appreciate your feedback to the session so we can improve it further. With this, a special thanks again to our two speakers, Frank and Mitun, and I wish you a great day. Thanks a lot.